Okay, so let's start. Today's lecture is very simple and it's basically introduction to cryptography. The next 5-6 lecture will focus on cryptography, and then we move into some digital signatures and so on. So basically continue discuss cryptography now onwards till the end, because even on networks, computer networks or internet, we use cryptography very heavily, right? So start focusing on the concepts. Okay, so today is we will just have introduction. Okay, right. So we will just introduce concept of cryptography. We look at these concepts, introduction to cryptography, then some applications that we know, history of cryptography, and then we'll introduce characters, and then we'll study Kirchhoff's principle, and then CIA and model. So these things we have studied in very brief, but we'll repeat because we will use this terminology very often. Okay, so contents have been taken primarily from this resource, and the book is available and University of California Berkeley site. So I will send you a link of the book from where I have taken the contents. Okay, and there are other interesting places where you can get more info. Okay, all right, so let's start with the introduction to cryptography. What is cryptography? Anyone can tell me about it? Okay, cryptography we can define as study of secure communication over insecure channels. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So what does it mean? See, channel is insecure. It means the medium on which you want to communicate is insecure, and this channel could be inside a system, outside system. You can think of internet, for example, right? Internet by itself does not provide any security. It's whatever you put at one end, like a pipe, it appears on the other end. So that is an insecure channel. Then question is that how do you provide security over that, right? How do you provide secure communication? So it's often abbreviated as crypto. Okay, so the goal of cryptography is to keep our information secure in the presence of attackers. Okay, and then the modern cryptography is full subject in itself, right? I mean, lot of research is happening and requires heavy mathematics. Okay, but our focus will be primarily on the concepts and the applications. Okay, so basically in cryptography we focus on three things, and we will repeatedly come back to these concepts. And whenever we say anything is secure with the use of cryptography, then we'll say whether it is whether confidentiality is maintained, the first thing, or integrity is maintained, and third is authenticity. Okay, so let's look at one by one. So confidentiality is something we can achieve confidentially when adversary cannot read our message. So you send a message over insecure channel, and if somebody in between can read those messages, okay, then it's not confidential, right? Somebody else knows the contents. Okay, okay, like some personal things that we send. Okay, usually have to be confidential. Or for example, you know, I mean, when you receive your credit card statement or bank statement, that is also confidential. Even if somebody, you know, has hacked your account, okay, and can read the email that has come from your bank, that hacker should not be able to get the details of your bank account. Okay, so there's a confidentiality. All right. Second is integrity. The adversary cannot change our message without being detected. Note this point, right? Adversary, it means adversary, if adversary changes the message, then it will be detected by recipient. Okay, all right. So that's the integrity. Okay, and third is authenticity. So is when you receive a message, are you sure you are receiving the message from the person it was supposed to come? Okay, when you're you know, getting a message from me, for example, are you sure I am that who has sent the message, not somebody else? Okay, so authenticity is something that wherein I can prove that message has come from a person who claims to have written it. Okay, if I've sent you a message, if system provides authenticity, it means that nobody else would have faked me and sent you a message. Okay, right? Okay. So now note that integrity and authenticity are very closely related properties, because before I can prove the message has come from a particular person or certain person, I have to prove that message has not changed. Okay, all right. So these are related but not the same. Okay, they don't have identical properties. So we will look at mechanisms to provide confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. And there are different mechanisms, and we use combination of these in general, right? So one example I have given to you is where we use cryptography is where you get a bank statement. Okay, that's encrypted, and then in order to know your bank statement or credit card statement, will ask for you some keys, which is, and keys, that key is unique for everyone, right? So it will ask for your 4 letters of your name, first name, first initial 4 letters, and then date of birth or month of birth and year and so on, right? So all right, so any other application you are aware of where we use cryptography? Yeah, attempt.
Like Bitcoin and
Yeah, Bitcoin, blockchain, fine. Anybody else? You know, try. We use it every day. We use it, whether you know it or not. We use it. Right now, we are using it. All our communication that's happening is encrypted until it reaches the other end. What else? Just think.
HTTPS,
Pardon?
HTTPS, SSL,
Yeah,
TLS.
HTTPS. Very right. I mean, S stands for security there, right? I mean, we encrypt. Yeah, very good. What else in daily life?
SSL, SSH.
SSL, SSH, fine. And then someone else told something.
Social media.
Social media, yes. WhatsApp, for example, right?
Yes.
WhatsApp messages are all encrypted end to end, right? That's the reason, you know, if the government wants to know what I have sent on my social media account, it has to get all the info from WhatsApp company. Otherwise, it's impossible. Okay, what else? What else, right?
So does barcodes also come under this?
Barcode, no, where is the encryption? It's just Barcode simply says it's just encoding of some information as per my understanding, right? That's not encryption. See, DVDs, for example, you use music DVDs. You cannot copy it, right? I mean, you buy a DVD, song DVD from market, and then you can't copy songs from one DVD to another DVD. That also has encryption. Okay. ATM machine, for example, the communication that happens is all encrypted. Your credit card itself has encrypted information, right? Otherwise, it's very simple to copy your credit card. Okay, so there are thousands of applications that we use, right? For example, like this here, WhatsApp, social media apps. You rightly said, withdrawal, cash withdrawal from ATM, mobile communication. So mobile communication, where is it? Encryption is happening. See, where is the insecure channel? The insecure channel is usually wireless is very insecure channel because anybody can intercept, not really intercept, can receive your messages, right? What your mobile phone does is that whatever you speak on cell phone, that goes to first base station, right? We know that hierarchy, right? From handset or mobile phone to base station, and base station to then it goes to BSC. I'm using a GSM terminology. Okay, from BSC it goes to MSC. Okay, and which is master switching center. Or so base station is something which you see there on towers. You can see various antennas. So base station is right there. So note that most of the communication that do over mobile is on wire. Okay, the communication that happens from you, for example, you and your friend who could be in any place in the world on mobile, if it's happening on mobile, end-to-end mobile, then only at the last phase of communication it is wireless, otherwise it is wireline. Okay, from base station to the base station that's closest to you, from to which your mobile phone is sending message, to the base station which is closest to your friend's place. Okay, everything in between is wire or fiber or cable or something. Only endpoint and this thing, right, last mile that we call it, is wireless. So this is insecure. How do you secure it? That is to be encrypted. From your mobile phone, message goes in encrypted form to base station. All right. Similarly, Wi-Fi, we use WEP or WPA too. So Wi-Fi, you can always connect to your your neighbors. You can always intercept if you have a smart device. You can always receive communication or data transfer happening in your neighbor's Wi-Fi. It's not a big deal, right? Okay, but question is that how do you interpret it? How do you make any sense out of it? Because it's all encrypted. Of course, there are a mechanism to decrypt it. Lot of tools are available, but in general, we want to say is that anywhere there is channel is insecure, there has to be encryption. HTTPS, you rightly mentioned, email communication, PGP and SMIME, both are secure emails. Password storage, we have already studied this, right? Passwords are stored where? In Unix. What file? Not in password file.
Shadow.
What did we say?
Shadow file.
Shadow file, right? Shadow file does not contain plain text. Shadow file contains encrypted passwords. Right? Electronic currency, fund transfer that you do, okay, between one bank to another bank or one account to another account, or from your desktop to even connecting to bank, all is secure, right? Okay, cable TV, there is an encryption of signals till the desktop, or what do you call that, set top box, right? Or kind of a small dabba or box that you have is all encrypted. Okay, VPN that you are using to connect to your office, to institute, the whole channel is encrypted between your endpoint, your machine, and the server in institute. Okay, we have already discussed SSL, IPsec. On disk also we try to keep encrypted contents are usually in encrypted form, such that if your disk is stolen, data is protected. You can do that. Okay, PGP uses Kerberos. We will study when we study, we'll study it later. Okay, DRM, digital right management, is based on encryption. Mobile phones in general keeps data encrypted. iTunes, Kindle, etc. Cryptocurrency, as you rightly mentioned, Bitcoin, etc. So many coins are available, digital coins are available nowadays. Mobile, like bills that we receive, FaceTime, Skype call, Dropbox, all this uses encryption or cryptography, because we want our message to be confidential. Okay, all right. Little bit about history of cryptography, and then we'll later on studies latest cryptography. It's over 2500 years old. Yeah, for almost like 2500 years, cryptography in some form or other is being used, and it's a continuous battle between those who create code and those who break the code. Okay, and it's happening even today. Okay, nowadays, of course, it's driven by communication and computation technology, but earlier it was based on paper and ink. Okay, I mean, on paper you have a message, write a message and then encrypt it or change the form, and so on. Then there was a mechanical devices or machines. Okay, it's actually mechanical devices with rotor, etc. Okay, and then there was a concept of telegrams and radio, and then encrypted messages that were encrypted by this mechanical device were sent over radio communication. Okay, and then modern day cryptography, which today's cryptography uses computers and digital communication. All right, and that's there for last 60 years or so. Okay, because early computers appeared, those were used for cryptography in 1960 and so on. Okay, crypto, as we discussed earlier, it requires a lot of mathematics, and we will not focus on that. Okay, we'll focus rather on computer networks and security. We'll focus a lot on networks because it will help you also to understand concept of networks all over again. Okay, but I mean, earliest evidence of cryptography are found in India. Okay, that's surprising, right? Like Vatsayana's famous book on Kama Sutra has a mention of secret writing. Okay, if you want to find data, please do Google and Google search, and you can get enough data on it. Okay, all right. Let's look at the simplest possible cryptography by hand. It's called Caesar cipher. Okay, it was of course invented by Julius Caesar. Okay, and this came over 2000 years ago. Okay, so there is a message, basic message, and then there is a crypto form of that, right, or converted form of that. Okay, so we can, and these are alphabets of English. Okay, all right, and then we'll have to choose a key randomly between 0 and 25. Okay, now these are if the letter in the message is A, then convert into D. If letter is B, convert into E. And if it's C, then F, and so on. Okay. So to encrypt a plain text message M, replace each letter in M with a letter K, positions later in the alphabet. So the value of K is 3. So take a letter in the message, say for example, my name. Okay, so if K is 3, then R should be converted into a letter which is 3 positions away. So it is U. A will be converted into D. V will be converted into Y, and I will be converted into L. So this will be encrypted message. Okay, and the recipient knows this, the value of K, which is key, and can do the reverse function to get the original message. Okay, all right. So it's very simple. Now, if on this, what kind of attacks we can have? Now, in between, we have Mallory. Okay, and what Mallory can do with it? Okay, now how can you decipher, or he can find out what is the original message from UDYL? Okay, let's assume the text is JCKNECGUCT. So this is what Eve receives, not Mallory, but let's assume Eve receives this, but does not know the value of K. What can she do now? Anybody? Anyone?
Brute force. She can check
Yeah,
for
she
any.
can. Yeah, she can start with value of key is equal to 1, 2, 3, and then check what is the output and see if it makes sense, right? So first is brute force attack. She will try all 27 possible keys, and then she'll get the answer, right? For example, here she had key value of key is +1, +2, and so on, and somewhere or other it makes sense, right? So here she would have found the key, because looking at this Hail Caesar, she will know that this is the original text. Okay, all right. What can be done better? Okay, okay. Better is that we can do an attack that's called chosen plain text attack. Okay, which is Eve tricks Alice into encrypting plain text of her choice. Okay, so Eve sends a text, whatever she wants to, and then Alice encrypts it and sends the message back, and then Eve can find out. For example, Eve sends a message M, which is AAA, and receives a message CCC, and she knows what it is, right? What is the value of key? Okay, all right. From this, she can know that K is 2. All right. Okay. Or now next, what is the next solution? That instead of having a key is equal to K, so 2 or 3 or whatever, so many characters away, you are encrypting a letter or character by a character which is few places away. That's very simple. So instead of that, we can also do, for example, original message is Ravi, then randomly pick up one of the letters out of 26, right? It could be Z, A could be M, V could be D, I could be F. Okay, so then there's the next thing, right? Okay, but that requires a table at both ends, right? Okay, but this will be very difficult to break, right? For example, A is replaced by N, B by Q, C by L, and D by Z, and it's all okay. All right. So then we need to generate this, from all these values, to the values here. These are so text with A should be changed by N, B by Q, and so on and so forth, right? Okay. So this is random. There's no relationship between A and N in terms of key value, right? But so now if you do encryption of message using this table and send the message in encrypted form, and the other end recipient must do reverse thing, right? And it means that he or she should have knowledge of all these mappings. Okay, so reversing can be done. So this is a much better algorithm. Okay, however, this will require a lot of combinations. Okay, 2 raised power 28 possible mappings are there, or 2 raised power 8, yeah. So now this is almost impossible to break even with modern computers. All right, but this is not all. We can also do here chosen plain text attack. Okay, now here, for example, Alice, so trick Alice into encrypting A, B, C, D up to Z and get the whole mapping. Okay, whatever the mapping here, Alice machine will encrypt this and send corresponding mapping, which is the now in between Eve can find out what is the mapping and can read the message then, right? So chosen plain text attack still is very common method. Okay, all right. Then cryptography started happening with machines. These are kind of mechanical machines. Okay, and look something like this. And these were used in World War II, and Germans were smart enough to come out with these machines. So they had a rotor, and the rotor will, there can be many values of the, and one element in rotor point to something, and you rotate the rotor and then randomly pick up the letter and then encrypt the message based on that. Okay. So was it breakable? Yes, it was breakable. So attack on Enigma, first thing is that, okay, Polish and British cryptographers built similar machine, which is called Bombi, and then that machine used brute force method to break whatever contents it received, right? So Enigma was of course breakable. Okay, and of course it has created some problems for allies, to find out the solution, and many days passed in the whole process. But it's breakable because Kirchhoff principle clearly says the Alice, very simple, right? So Alice, they have stole the Enigma machine, so they knew the algorithm. Okay. And also, allies, that's British and other countries, they also did plain text attack. So they will trick Germans to send, predictable messages. Okay, so for example, they every morning weather report is being sent, okay, by Germans, right? And it's usually similar. It will use similar contents. Okay, and then allies will know that, for something related to weather, output is something, and they could crack the keys. And also, they tricked allies to, to sending a message like some message, right? For example, they create a situation somewhere, and then because of that, allies will send messages, and which will be intercepted by allies forces, and then something like this, that soldiers at some place, and this is a message which is known to allies, and they will trick Germans to send this encrypted version of this, and because of this they can find it out what is the original message. Okay, all right. So now that, one famous person which we often hear about, Alan Turing, like Turing machine, you would have studied in possibly first or second course, especially when you read automata theory. Okay, he was the one of the cryptographers who broke Enigma. And then Turing further did research and became one of the most famous person in area of computer science. And so we have nowadays, in comp science, award called Turing Award, which is equivalent to kind of Nobel Prize. So if you can get Turing Award, then you are possibly one of the best in the subject, right? So many people, of course, believes that the Allies forces could break Enigma, has reduced the war, shortened the war by at least a year. Okay, cryptography has been continuously, improving or changing, and latest research happened very recently, just about 4 decades back, 1976. Okay, and there is a very famous algorithm, right, which is called Diffie-Hellman algorithm. Okay, and then this was the beginning of asymmetric cryptography. Okay, we'll study that, right? And these two people, wrote just excellent paper. Well, of course, there are claims that many other researchers have also done work almost at the same time, but they were the one who could publish it earlier. Okay, and they got the Turing Award for this research in 2015. Okay, all right. So 2015, actually, around that time, research was published, not 1976. I'm sorry. 1976 onwards, the number theory have been used in cryptography, and then 2000, just about some time back, they got this paper, and maybe a decade earlier, they would have done this research. Okay, one of them is Diffie, another is Hellman. You find it out who's who. So takeaway from what we have studied now is cryptography started with paper and pencil algorithms like Caesar's cipher. Then cryptography moved into mechanical machines like Enigma, and now cryptography has moved to computers. That we'll study now onwards. Okay. All right. Any question? Okay. Now we are going to meet characters which we'll use often, which we already used in our discussion so far is Alice, Bob, Eve, Mallory, and sometimes some authors use Trudy. Okay. So we'll, okay, so we have Alice, Bob, then Eve and Mallory. Okay. And why this is so, I don't know. There, in fact, you can find a paper about it, why these characters were created, but they are here. And there we can also add to this Trudy. So it's she, he, she, and Trudy is also she. So why that is so, that I don't know. Okay, what we will try to use gender neutral, we will try to use this word in gender neutral way. Okay, so when I say he or she, please don't think that is pointed towards somebody. Okay, all right. So Alice and Bob are the main character and trying to send message to each other. So two end of the communication, insecure communication channel, we have Alice, okay, and Bob on the other side. Okay, and Mallory and Eve are in between. Could be Mallory, sometimes we'll have Mallory only, sometimes Eve. Also Trudy is also in between. Okay, all right, just a minute. So now Eve is eavesdropper, okay, and can read any data sent over the channel. Okay, she or slash she just can read, just interested in reading what Alice is writing to Bob. Okay, and Mallory is the one who can read and modify as well any data. Okay, sent over the channel. All right, and 2D also is a manipulator. Okay, some authors use word 2D character 2D, but many others use Mallory and Eve, but all of them use Alice and Bob. Okay, all right. So for example, we can use these kind of sentences. Alice wants to send a message to Bob. However, Eve is going to eavesdrop the communication channel. How does Alice send the message to Bob without Eve learning about the message? Or Bob wants to send a message to Alice, and Mallory is going to tamper with the communication channel, and so on. Okay. Now we'll repeat Kerckhoffs's principle. Now these two characters have nothing to do with Kerckhoff. Just I have added. So important thing note is the key. Key is very important in cryptographic functions, right? It is not the mechanism. Mechanism of course important, but key is something that gives all three properties that we have studied, right? Okay, most basic building block of cryptographic function is the key. So we are going to use key in our algorithms to secure messages. Okay, there are two models of key which we'll study later. One is symmetric key and second is asymmetric key. Symmetric key means that both Bob and Alice will use the same key. Alice will use the key to encrypt the message and Bob will use the same key to decrypt the message. Asymmetric key model, there is a concept of public key and private key, which we'll study later. Okay. So Kerckhoff principle says, of course, we'll come to that. It's related to Shannon's maxim, which we also studied earlier, which says that don't use security through obscurity. It means that attacker knows the system. So the encryption algorithm, if you create a new encryption algorithm thinking that nobody will know, is incorrect assumption. Okay. All right. So we are going to use only key as a mechanism of providing these three characteristics. Okay. So crypto system should remain secure even when attacker knows all the internal details of the system. Okay. So the key should be the only thing that must be kept secret. Okay. So now if you want to change, if key is lost or key is, somebody else knows the key or something like that, it's very simple to change the key instead of changing the lock. Okay. All right. So you don't need to change the algorithm, but you just need to change the key. So if your secret is late, it's usually a lot easier to change the key than replace the every instance of running software. Okay. All right. So our assumption is that attacker knows all the algorithms we use. Only information the attacker is missing is the secret key. Okay. So these models we have already studied. Purpose of the cryptography is essentially to create confidence, to have confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So now there are two models or many models actually that are defined. So CIA model is most often used. It says that it should provide confidentiality, it should provide integrity, and it should also provide availability. Okay. Now note here that we are authentication is included in this one. So because both are related sometimes, and this is a very old model. So it assumes that authentication is part of integrity. Okay, availability is a new concept here. So basically availability says they can access data whenever we need it. So basically, I mean, look at this way that Alice is sending a message to Bob and then it should reach as it is, and should, when the message that Bob receives should come from, must come from Alice only. Okay, and nobody would have tampered with it, etc., etc. Another thing is that's important is that Bob must receive it. Okay, system must make sure that message which Alice is sending is received. Now, okay, so it means that there can be ways in which the system can be made unavailable so that Bob doesn't receive the message. Okay, so availability is important concept here. Okay, for example, denial of service attack. Okay, you don't want bank's website to be unavailable to customers for even 1 hour. There's a $1 million loss to the bank, and that can be done by, you know, doing denial of service attack, and that people have been doing. It means that from million of sources, just ping or send some a message to that server, and server will be overwhelmed. So if you and me want to do transaction in the bank, then we can't do it. So availability is also very important. Okay, now availability in the context of security, we are just thinking in terms of, you know, somebody or malicious element should not make the system unavailable. Now availability is also concept in terms of reliability. Components may fail or computer may fail and make system unavailable. So that's not our concern here. Our concern is largely about forces that can make system unavailable. Okay, and another model which sometimes you will find in literature is called CIAAN, where CIA is the same that we have studied here, confidential, integrity, availability, and A is authentication, authorization, and non-repudiation. Okay, so these are also the characteristics. So let's quickly go through it in the next 10 minutes. Confidentiality, we know by now, is confidentiality is concealment of information. Okay, so Alice is sending something to the Bob, and Eve should not be able to read that. No eavesdropping. Okay, if eavesdropping is there, then it's not confidential, right? So how do we do confidentiality? One example is that Alice, just think of this scenario. Alice is sending a message to Bob. So she puts the message or letter in a box and puts a lock to that. Okay, and there is a key, of course, to the lock. So there is a box, in that there's a message, and there is also a lock. Okay, and there should be a key. Okay, and then she sends this box to Bob, where everyone can see that this box is in transit. Okay, but they can't do anything. It's a Mallory in between tries to see what the message is, and she doesn't have a key. She can't open the box. When it receives, when Bob receives it, and Bob has identical key, Bob can open this. Okay, all right. All right. So this is an analogy. But in actual practice, what can happen is that Alice encrypts a message. Now this encryption algorithm is known to Mallory. Okay. But she encrypts a message using some key, and this encrypted message goes over insecure channel, is received by Bob. Bob uses the key to decrypt it and receives a message. Note that these two keys are the same. Now you can ask this question, how Bob knows the key which Alice has used. We'll solve this problem later. Okay. All right. So assume that both Alice and Bob have similar keys, and this is called symmetric encryption. Okay, all right. So now the terminologies we have used: plain text, the one here. Okay, ciphertext is something that after encryption the message become encrypted one, which we call as ciphertext, which goes over in secure channel. Okay. Second property is that of integrity. Integrity is prevention of unauthorized changes. It means that when Alice is sending something and Mallory receives it in between over in secure channel, and she should not be able to tamper this. Okay, change the contents of message, right, and release it again. So Bob, the one that Bob receives will not be the same that what Alice has sent. Okay, so now we can have analogy here. Alice writes a letter or message, okay, puts it in an envelope. Okay, the letter is she puts in an envelope and create a seal using some key. Okay, I mean, you would have seen, I don't know whether you have seen it or not, in offices, you know, I mean, government office, especially when confidential information goes, like transfer order or promotion order, they put this in envelope and then they actually apply a seal, which is actually earlier it used to be from lead. I mean, they will melt lead and then put actual seal, a metal seal on that, the impression will form, right? So, so Alice message, Alice puts in an envelope and puts a seal on top of that, right? Using some key, which is nothing but imprints. Okay, that seal may have some image or character, and when it's put in onto envelope, it creates a seal. Now, Mallory in between can see message and seal. Message is of course inside envelope, so she can't read that. She can see that is going to Bob, but there is a seal inside. Now, only way she can read the message is to break the seal and read it, and then Bob will come to know seal is broken. Okay, so that's how integrity is achieved. Okay, all right. Okay. So now in system, how do we achieve integrity? We have a message. Okay, we use a key. Alice uses a key and create a tag. Okay, now and now she sends message and tag. Note that here we are not we are interested on integrity. The message can be read. Now we have not said this encrypted. Message can be read. Okay, but it cannot be tampered. Similarly here, I mean, you know, earlier one. So message cannot be tampered. Okay, so now if she changes the message, the recipient will come to know the message is changed because it will not match with the tag value. Okay, so check the tag, use the key and get the message, and we'll come to know the message is tampered or not. Okay, this scheme provides integrity by adding tag or signature on messages, right? So Alice uses key to generate a special tag for the message. Alice sends the message and the tag over the insecure channel, and Mallory, if Mallory tampers with the message, tag will no longer be valid. Okay, we will see how to achieve this. Okay, so Bob receives message on the tag and checks the tag is still valid. All right, because tag is related to the contents of the message and that uses a key. Okay, any question? Okay, Of course, availability we have all studied in brief. Availability is making sure that message reaches this end. Okay. Availability is ability to use information or resources. Fine. Okay. Denial of service attack is one way to make things unavailable. Okay. All right. Then something called authenticity. Authenticity is basically knowing whom you're talking to. Okay. All right. Okay. So so authenticity is being genuine and able to be verified or trust, verifying that the user are who they say they are. Okay. So if we receive something, if Bob receives something from Alice, then he should be ensured that it's from Alice, not from somebody in between. Okay. And similarly, we can define accountability. Okay. Action of an entity can be traced uniquely to that entity and supports non-repudiation. Okay, so now there are related concept which we'll study in next 2 minutes. Something is called non-repudiation of origin. So non-repudiation is the assurance that someone cannot successfully deny the validity of something. Now this again related concept, right? Is apart from integrity. Okay, so it says that, for example, Bob is doing some money transfer to bank. Bob has done some transaction with the bank. Okay, then later on, Bob cannot deny that I have not done this. Bob cannot deny that I have not done the transfer. Okay. So it non-repudiation refers to ability to ensure that party to the contract or communication cannot refuse the authenticity of their signature on a document that message was actually sent. So this is called non-repudiation of the origin. Okay. And second is non-repudiation of emission, wherein Bob is sending something. Say Bob is sending, say for example, say $500, $1,500, and but he cannot say that I did the transfer. Because he did the transfer, he'll say I did the transfer, but that was not the amount. So here it is related to the contents of the message. You cannot deny the contents that person has sent. Okay, that's called non-repudiation of emission. Okay, to summarize, we have studied what basic concept of cryptography is, which is communicating securely over insecure channel. And then we have looked at few concepts like Kerckhoffs's principle looked again. Then studied confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-repudiation. Okay, so non-repudiation of emission and non-repudiation of origin. So these were the concepts we studied. All right, thank you. Any question? Okay, all right, thank you then.